So we're reading the second book of the Storm Runner trilogy. This is Storm Runners The Surge by Roland Smith, read with permission by Scholastic. We're at the end of the first quadrant, and we're discovering that the problem is they've found a safe place to stay, but is it really safe? Is the barn really safe, or is it going to come down in the storm? And we're still waiting for John and Cindy to get to them. The parents aren't with them, only Mama Rossi. 5:01 a.m. Tomas's 4x4 bouncing along the slick railroad ties was like an amusement park ride for the occupants, minus the amusement. "How much further?" Mark shouted from the jump seat in back where he was getting the brunt of the bounce. "About a half a mile," John shouted back. "How far have we gone?" "About a half a mile." "You gotta be kidding me. I'm getting pounded back here. I need a helmet." John turned. Mark was cradling the video camera the way you might cradle an infant. "You might want to let go of that camera and hang on." "This camera is worth more than my life." "It doesn't even belong to you," Cindy pointed out. "The station owns it." "Yeah, but if I break it, I will own it," Mark said. "And a busted camera won't do me much good, considering that in a couple hours, when I don't show up at the station for work, I'll be unemployed." "So will I," Cindy said. Cindy and Mark had both known when they climbed into John Masters' truck and headed towards Hurricane Emily that there was a good chance that they would not make it back to St. Petersburg by morning. Cindy had accepted John's invitation because after spending half the previous day watching him work, she was curious about him. Mark had tagged along because he was curious about the hurricane. They had both gotten what they wanted. Cindy had interviewed John during the terrifying ride into the storm, and she'd learned enough about him to know that he would make a very interesting subject of a documentary. She was thinking of calling it "The Man Who Got Struck by Lightning." Mark had shot some amazing footage of Emily's fury, but the only way to save his job was to get that footage on the air. Without power, there was no way to do this. "It was a lousy television station anyway," Cindy said. "Look on the bright side. We won't have to put up with Richard Krupp anymore." Richard Krupp was the station's lead anchorman and the most popular television personality in St. Petersburg. "It'll be nice not to have to deal with him anymore," Mark admitted. "But how am I going to make a living?" "With me," Cindy said. "We'll go freelance." "Without a camera?" "I have some money put away. I'll get you a camera. In the meantime, hand the station's camera up front. We'll hang on to it while you get a grip." Mark happily gave Cindy and John the expensive camera to guard for a while. John looked over at Tomas, who was hunched over the steering wheel, trying to see through the watery windshield. He'd offered to take over the driving again, but Tomas shook his head, just as he had every time John suggested it. 3 minutes later, they hit something lying across the track. The truck went airborne, rolled counterclockwise, slammed back onto the track on the driver's side, and slid for 30 feet between the rails, with the airbags deployed, before it came to a teetering stop. "Is everyone okay?" John asked. "I'm good," Cindy said. "Okay," Tomas said. "Soiled underpants," Mark said. "Too much information," Cindy said. "How's the camera?" Mark asked. "It's jammed between Tomas's shoulder and my ear," Cindy answered, "but I think it's fine." "Put it in park, Tomas," John said. "Don't turn the engine off. We may not be able to get it started again." "That seems like a moot point since the truck is lying on its side," Mark said. "With some luck, we might be able to right it," John said. "I'm going to try and climb out through the window. Nobody move. I don't want it to flip over on the roof on top of me or over the trestle." "As in bridge?" Mark said. "I can't see very clearly through the windshield, but it looks like this section of track is 10 to 12 feet above a swamp. If we go into the drink, we'll be on foot." "Providing we don't drown," Mark added. "Exactly. Just so you know, I can't swim." "That's good to know." John slipped his headlamp on and opened the passenger window. When he stuck his head outside, the wind nearly pulled him out of the cab. 5:13 a.m. Chase put the battery back into the satellite phone and then turned it on. "No go," he said. "Rice time." Rashawn took the phone and put it into a Ziploc bag filled with uncooked rice. "You'll be talking to your dad before you know it." "I hope it works," Nicole said. "I've never seen this fail." Rashawn started unloading the other goodies from the large box she'd brought from the bunkhouse kitchen. Chase looked at the electric heater and then at Mama Rossi. "Maybe we should switch the heater off to conserve power." Not until you dry off, Mama Rossi said. How did you and Rashawn get so wet? Chase told her about the broken window. Did you top the generator off? Nicole asked. I would have, but there wasn't any left. The cans were all empty. Chase walked over to the heater and put his cold hands in front of it. You didn't tell me that, Rashawn said, joining him in front of the heater. I thought I'd let everyone know at once. Chase looked at Nicole. I searched all over the workshop. Is there any place else your dad might store it? Nicole shook her head. There are 3 cans next to the generator. He fills them up in town when they're empty. There were 3 cans, Chase said, and they're all empty. Unfortunately, the generator is just about empty too. I'd guess we have about a half an hour before the lights go off, maybe less. Not good, Nicole said, glancing at Pet. The barn is dark as a tomb, even during the day. She pointed at a small window to the side of the ring. That's it for daylight. Dad's been so busy with Pet and taking care of the farm, I guess he forgot to pick up gas. You opened that big door after sunup, Rashawn said. There'd be plenty of light. The storm might not be over by sunrise, Chase pointed out, which would mean no light, or at least not very much. And if Pet saw an opening that big, Nicole added, she'd try and pull her leg off getting to it. We have plenty of gas in the shack and shop, Chase said. The shack was the 5th wheel where Chase and his father lived. The shop was his father's tractor-trailer rig. It was filled with tools and building supplies. Tomas had a small apartment built into the front end of the shop. You can't go out in this, Nicole said. It's either that or we'll be sitting here in the dark listening to an elephant being born, Chase said. We have flashlights. We have 1 flashlight and 2 headlamps, Chase corrected, which aren't going to do us much good if there's a problem with the calf. What about the 4-wheeler, Rashawn asked. What about it, Chase asked. I don't know what the shack and shop is or where it is, but we rode down here on a 4-wheeler and it's parked right outside the door we came through to get into the barn. Chase smiled. Rashawn, always thinking. He had no desire to fight his way on foot to the shop to get gas, especially in the dark. Is the tank full? Nicole asked, looking as relieved as he felt. Oh yeah, Chase said, or pretty close to full. One of his father's many rules was that all gas tanks were to be kept full at all times for situations just like this. He had topped the 4-wheeler's tank off the previous morning before he'd picked up Nicole and driven her to the road to catch the school bus. It's a 5-gallon tank. We could siphon it into one of the cans and we'd have enough to keep us going for several hours. Let's get it inside, Nicole said. We can crack the big door open and pull it in. The big door was in fact big enough to drive a semi-truck through, but the door wouldn't budge, even with all 4 of them pushing and pulling on it. The wind's too strong out there, Chase said. We'll never get it open. I'll have to use the small door. The 4-wheeler won't fit through the door, Nicole said. You're right, but I can push it up to the door and we have to siphon the gas out anyway. I'll get the hose and a can, Rashawn said, hurrying off into the darkness towards the bunkhouse. That Rashawn's a go-getter, Mama Rossi said. I like her. So do I, Nicole agreed. Where does she live? Up the road a few miles. Her dad's the refuge manager. We need to turn the heater off, Chase said, and any lights we don't absolutely need. Mama Rossi walked over and unplugged the heater. Nicole opened a panel in the wall and switched off everything except for a couple spotlights over the ring. A few minutes later, Rashawn returned with a watering hose, an empty gas can, an armful of pillows and blankets. Don't know about you, but I'm going to take a nap after we get the generator gassed up. On the big old hammock? Chase asked, taking the gas can from her. Yep. What are you talking about? Nicole asked. Mama Rossi laughed. I think they're talking about the catch net for the flyers. Flyers? Rashawn asked. The trapeze artists, Nicole explained. Chase took out his pocket knife, cut a length of hose, and walked over to the door with Nicole and Rashawn. I'll get the 4-wheeler as close as I can and we'll figure out what to do from there. Ready? He turned the handle. The door banged open, nearly dislocating his arm. Water and debris flew through the opening. Watch out! Nicole and Rashawn ducked to either side. Chase dropped to his knees to give the wind a smaller target and peered outside with his headlamp. Shingles, broken furniture, and other house debris lined the outside walls like a 4-foot snowdrift of garbage. WPPs, thought Chase. We were lucky to get inside the barn when we did. The 4-wheeler was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps most disturbing was the amount of water outside. The side of the barn looked like the bow of a ship slicing through flotsam and jetsam on a rough sea. He pulled his head back inside and struggled to close the door, but could barely move it. Nicole and Rashawn leapt to their feet to help him, and after what seemed like forever, they managed to shut the door, getting themselves drenched once again. "What happened?" Nicole asked. "The four-wheeler must be buried under the debris," Chase said, "or maybe it floated away. The balloon tires could have lifted it like a boat in the current." "What do you mean by current?" Rashawn asked. "There's a lot of water out there. The surge. Flooding. Right now, the only thing keeping the water out of the barn, or most of the water anyway, is the debris. It's formed a dam." "What are we going to do?" Nicole asked. "I guess I'm going to have to make my way to the shop after all." "I'll go with you," Nicole said. "There's no point in that. It won't take two of us to bring back a can of gas." "What's it like out there?" Rashawn asked. "Not too bad," Chase lied.